The Learning Process, a visual presentation created by Heather Hobbs, November 10th, 2013. Each of us has the ability to learn. In order to maximize learning potential, we need to understand the learning process. In this presentation, you will learn how the brain works, historical theories of learning, factors that affect learning, how we learn differently, and how to promote learning. All learning occurs in the brain. The brain is comprised of 4 lobes. The occipital lobe, which controls what we see, the temporal lobe, which controls hearing, the frontal lobe looks after higher level thinking, language, speech, and feelings, and the parietal lobe that integrates sensory data. Our brains contain over 1 billion neurons. When the brain takes in new information, neurons fire, making connections with other neurons containing similar information. Each time the information is received by the brain, these pathways or connections become stronger and increase the brain's ability to retrieve information. Pathways that aren't used are pruned by the brain and the information is lost. Memory is the brain's ability to reactivate connections. For decades, scientists have tried to understand how we learn. Behaviorism theorists believed that learning was based in behavior. This theory purported that if we rewarded desired behavior and punished undesirable behavior, students would become successful learners. The problem with this theory is that it had no basis in how the brain works. Social cognition theory believed that a child's culture dictates how and what they learn. This theory claimed that curriculum, instruction, and assessment decisions should be based on the child's actual development, what I can do independently, and potential development, what I can do with help. The ability of a student to learn is based on the contributions of the adults and peers in the learning environment. Jean Piaget believed that children went through 4 stages of cognitive development: the sensory motor stage, the pre-operational stage, the concrete operations stage, and the formal operations stage. Piaget believed that through experiences with the world around them, children's cognitive structure is reinforced or changed. Albert Bandura, the father of social learning theory, believed that learning occurs by observing others. Social learning theorists believed learning was influenced by cognitive, behavioral, and environmental interactions. In order for learning to occur, 4 conditions must be present. The learner must pay attention, remember what happened, be capable of reproducing behavior, and want to reproduce the behavior and believe they are capable of doing so. Each of these theories attempted to explain how we learn and how to ensure students are successful learners. Recent research into the brain provides 4 key points that affect how we view learning. The brain is sculpted through experience. Neuroplasticity, or the brain's ability to change, is impacted by our environment, our experiences, and our activities. Because of the large amount of data that the brain takes in at any one time, the brain seeks to make meaning through patterns. The brain stores meaningful information and searches through other neurons to make sense of what it's receiving. The brain remembers what it sees and experiences. Strong neural connections are made when we provide concrete experiences for students. Another catalyst to learning is emotion. The amygdala holds emotional memory, while the hippocampus stores emotional situations that are remembered longer. Finally, scientists have discovered 2 types of memory, or processes to store information. Procedural memory are habits and skills that we remember unconsciously. Declarative memory is episodic and semantic. For example, we may remember what we had for breakfast, and we also remember concepts that we have learned over time. In order to understand how students learn, it's important to realize that a number of factors affect learning. The first factor that affects student learning and the brain is meaning and relevance. Students need to have meaningful learning experiences that make a connection to their everyday life. As mentioned earlier, emotion plays a large role in learning. Emotion affects memory. Beers states that chemicals in the brain send a message when emotion confirms that information being received is important, and this process increases retention. Providing a challenging learning environment enriches the brain. Jensen stated, "The single best way to grow a better brain is through challenging problem solving." Another factor that affects learning is attention. As educators, we need to realize that students' attention varies throughout the day and that students need time to process what they are learning. The final factor that can have an effect on student learning is threats and punishment. If students are feeling threatened, their stress levels can increase, which can cause a loss of short-term memory and inhibit performance. We all learn differently, and it's important to realize that each of our students has a unique way of learning. Many of our students are visual learners who learn through what they see. Others are auditory learners who learn best through what they hear. And finally, we have kinesthetic learners who learn through moving and doing. Howard Gardner describes 8 intelligences, or ways that people understand the world around them. The verbal linguistic, involving the use of language. The logical mathematical, involving the use of numbers and patterns. The visual spatial uses pictures and images. The body kinesthetic involves physical motion and interaction. The musical rhythmic involves sensitivity to tones and rhythm. Interpersonal is person-to-person relationships. Intrapersonal is self-reflection and awareness. And the naturalistic, which involves discrimination among living things. So how do we use what we know about the brain to promote learning with our students? The first thing to do is to allow them to construct their own learning or knowledge. Based on their pre-existing knowledge, students are able to create and define their own learning opportunities. Providing authentic learning tasks that are relevant to students' lives make learning meaningful. Giving students the opportunity to think about their thinking and providing specific and timely feedback is also an effective way to promote learning. Lastly, providing learning opportunities that appeal to students' interests and learning style are motivating and engaging. As educators, it's important that we realize that all learners come to the learning process with the same ability to learn and the same function of the brain, but that we learn in different ways with different learning styles and that we are affected by different things in that learning process.